My son forgot I could hear him. He's incompetent, Jess. The judge will sign the papers in 10 minutes. Then Whispering Pines gets a new tenant. And we get his life. I stood in the dark hallway, the fog in my mind burning away. They thought the old mechanic was broken, ready for the scrap heap. They were about to find out I don't just fix engines, I dismantle them. If you're listening to this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not just talking to the silence. My name is David Miller, and I need to tell you how my home became my prison. The silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. It screamed at me. 6 months since Emma died. The quiet still felt wrong. Emma was the noise in my life. The laughter, the humming in the kitchen, the sound of her telling me I used too much salt. I'm a simple man. I've owned Miller's Auto Repair for 35 years. I know engines better than I know how to live alone. The house felt too big, too empty, and the emptiness was slowly killing me. The shop kept me busy during the day. The smell of oil and old tires was a comfort. It was familiar. My mechanics, Mike and Tom, were good men. They didn't say much about Emma. They didn't have to. Their eyes said it all. But the nights? The nights were long. My hands, usually covered in grease, now just fiddled with the remote, flipping channels, watching nothing. I wasn't sleeping, and I was forgetting things. Little things at first. Where I left my keys. Did I lock the back door? Then bigger things. The names of customers I'd known for 20 years. I'd stare at them, their faces familiar, but the names were gone. It scared me. Grief, the doctor said, checking my vitals. It clouds the mind, David. It makes you tired. You need rest. I nodded. Rest sounded good. But rest didn't bring Emma back. And it didn't stop the fog rolling in. That's when Mark and Jessica showed up. My son and his wife. I was in my armchair. The worn-out leather one Emma always threatened to throw away. They stood over me. Mark clapped a hand on my shoulder. Too hard. He always had a salesman's charm. Even as a kid, he could sell you anything. Make you believe anything. Dad, you shouldn't be alone right now, he said, his voice smooth. Jessica stood beside him. Her smile was polished, tight. She was always immaculate. Expensive clothes. Perfect hair. She never looked comfortable in my greasy world. We worried, David, she said, her voice dripping with fake concern. You're rattling around in this big old house. You seem so frail lately. Frail. The word stung. Let us take care of you, she added, tilting her head. I hesitated. The house was Emma's legacy. Her quilts, her garden, the photographs lining the hallway. It was the only place I felt close to her. Giving it up felt like losing her all over again. But I was tired, so very tired. The loneliness was a heavy weight on my chest. Pressing down, crushing me. Maybe they were right. Maybe I needed help. Okay, I whispered. Mark smiled, a winner's smile. I didn't realize it then, but that was the moment I lost everything. They moved in the next weekend. The silence was replaced by a different kind of noise. Boxes scraping across the floor. Jessica's sharp voice directing the movers. Mark on the phone, always on the phone, talking about investments. It didn't feel like help. It felt like an invasion. And the changes started immediately. It started slowly, subtle shifts. Jessica decided the living room was too cluttered. I was looking for Emma's favorite quilt. The blue one with the star pattern. It was always draped over the sofa. It was gone. Jessica? The quilt? I asked. She didn't look up from her tablet. Oh, that old thing. It's a tripping hazard, David. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were cold. I found them later. All of Emma's quilts, folded, put into a cedar chest in the attic, locked away. We just want things to be efficient, David, Jessica explained when I confronted her. It's cleaner this way, easier for you to manage. I didn't argue. The fog was too thick. Managing seemed hard. But the house felt colder without them. But that wasn't the worst part. The photographs disappeared next. The hallway was bare. 35 years of memories, gone. Replaced by modern art prints. Cold, abstract shapes. They meant nothing to me. It looks so much more sophisticated now, don't you think? Jessica beamed. I looked at the empty walls. Sophisticated, no. Sterile, my history was being erased. One picture at a time, then the garden started dying. Emma's roses, her prized hydrangeas, brown and brittle. I just don't have time to water them, David. Jessica sighed dramatically when I pointed it out. We have so much to handle. Handling me. That's what she meant. I tried to water them myself, but I was so tired. My legs felt heavy. The watering can slipped from my hand. I just sat on the porch and watched them die. Then Mark started coming down to the shop. He'd never shown interest before. He worked in finance, something vague that never seemed to pay off. He walked in like he owned the place. Mike and Tom exchanged nervous glances. "Dad, the bookkeeping here is a mess," he announced, flipping through my ledger. The same ledger I'd used for 35 years. "It worked just fine. You're still doing everything by hand," he laughed. A sharp, condescending sound. "We need to modernize. I can set up an online system. It will practically run itself." He looked at me, pity in his eyes. "It will take the burden off you, Dad. You need to rest." I let him. I trusted him. He was my son. He was Emma's boy. How could I not trust him? But the fog didn't lift. It got heavier, thicker. I started feeling unsteady on my feet. I'd drift off in the middle of the day, sitting in my own chair. I'd wake up hours later, confused, disoriented. My employees, Mike and Tom, started looking at me differently. Not with respect, with pity. I was becoming the old man they feared I would be. Jessica was very attentive. Always there, watching me. "You're pushing yourself too hard, David," she'd say, her voice smooth as silk. "You need rest. You're not young anymore." She had a solution. "Of course you did. I got these new supplements from my specialist," she said, holding up a small white bottle. "They're natural. They'll help you sleep. Clear your mind." Clear my mind? I wanted that more than anything. Every evening, 2 large white pills, a glass of warm milk. Jessica stood over me until I swallowed. I didn't question it. I was grateful. The sleep they brought was deep. Dreamless. Heavy. I stopped going to the shop as much. It was too exhausting. Mark said he had it covered. He said the business was thriving under his management. I was fading away, and they were blooming. My daughter, Sarah, called often. She was a nurse, practical, kind, much like her mother. She lived 2 towns over, worked long shifts. She knew something was wrong. I tried to talk to her, but Jessica always intercepted the calls. "He's sleeping, dear. He needs his rest." They had taken my cell phone weeks ago. Said it confused me. I was isolated, trapped in my own home. Sarah came over for Sunday dinner. It was the first time I'd seen her in weeks. The tension in the dining room was thick. I tried to cut my roast beef. My hands were shaking. Violent. The knife clattered against the plate. Sarah's eyes narrowed. She watched me struggle. "Dad, are you okay?" she asked, reaching over to help me. "You seem distant." Before I could answer, Jessica swept in, refilling water glasses, her movements sharp, efficient. "He's just tired, Sarah," she said, her smile bright and fake. "The grief is finally catching up. The doctor said he needs peace and quiet." She paused, placed a comforting hand on my shoulder. Her touch felt like ice. And then she dropped the bomb. "We're actually thinking of getting him into a lovely assisted living place," Jessica announced, as if she were discussing the weather. "Whispering Pines. Just for a respite. Whispering Pines." The name sounded peaceful, but I knew what it meant. A place where old people go to die. "It's beautiful there," she continued. "They have activities, specialized care." The room spun. Specialized care? For what? Sarah looked shocked. Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "Assisted living," she stammered. "Dad's only 65. He's perfectly capable." Mark finally spoke up. "Sarah, be realistic. He's declining. We're just trying to help." "It's preventative, dear," Jessica added smoothly. Her smile never faltered. "We don't want him falling down the stairs, or forgetting to turn off the stove. We have to think about his safety." I wanted to protest. I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell Sarah that I needed her, that something was terribly wrong, but the words felt thick and heavy in my mouth. The fog was too dense. I couldn't push through it. I just nodded. defeated. Maybe they were right. Maybe I was falling apart. Sarah looked at me, her eyes filled with worry. But she didn't fight. Not then. I had never felt more alone. The breaking point didn't come with a crash. It came with a whisper. Late Tuesday night. I woke up thirsty. My mouth was dry as cotton. The heavy sleep the pills induced usually kept me under until morning. But not tonight. I stumbled out of bed, shuffling down the hallway toward the kitchen. The house was dark, quiet. But as I reached the stairs, I heard voices. They were coming from the study. Emma's sewing room. Mark's study now. I stopped, leaned against the wall. My heart pounded in my chest. A sudden, sharp fear paralyzed me. Mark was talking, his voice low, excited. The realtor said the house is a gold mine. Jess, he whispered. The location is perfect. Gold mine? My house? And the shop? Jessica asked. Her voice was sharp, all business. No trace of the sweet concern she showed me. Prime commercial real estate, Mark replied. We can clear $600K easily, maybe more if we sell them together quickly. Sell them? My shop? The business I built from nothing? My blood ran cold. And the conservatorship? Jessica pressed. Conservatorship. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Final. My lawyer says it's practically done, Mark said, smugness dripping from his voice. The hearing is next Friday. With his current state and the testimony from the doctor you found, the judge will finalize it in 10 minutes. The doctor she found. It was all planned. He's clearly incompetent, Mark continued. He can barely hold a conversation. Incompetent. The word hit me like a physical blow, stealing the air from my lungs. My own son. Once it's finalized, he said, we have full control. We move him into Whispering Pines on Saturday, and the assets are ours to liquidate. Liquidate. Erase me completely. We can finally pay off Kevin, Mark sighed in relief. Clear our credit card debts and breathe. Kevin, Mark's shady business partner. They were in trouble. Deep trouble. Good, Jessica said. Her voice, cold, satisfied. I already booked the flights to Aruba. First class. Aruba. While I rotted in Whispering Pines, we deserve a celebration, she added. After dealing with this mess, dealing with him, I stood frozen in the dark hallway. The fog in my mind, the thick haze that had clouded my thoughts for months. It evaporated, instantly. It wasn't grief. It wasn't age. It was them. The pills. The supplements. They were drugging me, making me weak. Confused. They were stealing my life. I crept back to my room, my hands shaking, not with frailty, but with a cold, hard rage I hadn't known I possessed. I looked at the 2 white pills on my bedside table, next to the glass of milk Jessica had left for me. Poison. My hands were steady now. The hands of a mechanic. Hands used to fixing broken things. Hands used to dismantling complex systems. I took the pills and flushed them down the toilet. They thought they had won. They thought the old man was broken, ready to be discarded. They were about to learn a hard lesson. I would wait. I would watch. And when the time was right, I would cancel everything. Their plans, their future, their freedom. The game had just begun. The next morning, the clarity was staggering. The world felt sharper, brighter. I hadn't felt this alive in months, but I couldn't let them know. I had to play the part they had written for me. The grieving, confused old man. I had 10 days until the hearing. 10 days to undo what they had done. 10 days to save myself. At breakfast, I shuffled into the kitchen, shoulders slumped, eyes unfocused. I reached for the coffee pot, spilled it, hot coffee everywhere. Jessica sighed dramatically. Oh, David, be careful. You'll burn yourself. She rushed over to clean it up. Sorry, Jess, I mumbled, keeping my eyes down. My hands are so shaky today. She patted my arm. It's okay. Just sit down. Take your morning vitamins. The same pills. They were drugging me around the clock. She handed them to me. I pretended to swallow, palmed them, tucked them into my pocket when she turned her back. Evidence. I needed evidence. My first priority was getting help. I needed Sarah. They watched me constantly. Security cameras in the living room, the hallway, for my safety, they claimed. I couldn't call Sarah from the house phone. They monitored the calls. I had to get out of the house. I had to get to the shop. Mark, I said later that afternoon, I need some fresh air. Can you take me down to the shop? I miss it. Mark hesitated. He didn't like me being in public. People might talk to me, say something they shouldn't. I don't know, Dad. You're not very steady today. Maybe tomorrow. I had to push without revealing my clarity. It's my shop, Mark, I said. A touch of frustration in my voice. The petulant anger they expected. I built it. I just want to sit in my office. Please. I feel trapped in this house. He sighed, recognizing the stubbornness he grew up with. Fine. But just for an hour, and you stay in the office. He thought he was in control. He was wrong. The shop felt like coming home. The smell of oil and tires grounded me. Mike and Tom looked surprised to see me. Hey, boss. Good to see you, Mike said. Mark shot him a sharp look. He's just visiting, Mike. Get back to the carburetor. I shuffled into my office. Mark hovered. Then his phone rang. I have to take this, he muttered, walking out. The moment the door closed, I moved. Fast. The spare landline, buried under old invoices. Bottom drawer. I dialed Sarah's number, fingers shaking. Hello? Sarah, it's Dad. Listen to me. Don't talk. Just listen. My voice was a harsh whisper. Dad, where are you? Are you okay? I'm at the shop. They're trying to take everything, Sarah. The house, the business. They're having me declared incompetent next Friday. They want to put me in a home. A sharp intake of breath. I knew it. I knew something was wrong. They always said you were sleeping. Yes. And Sarah, they're drugging me. She gasped. Drugging you? With what? Dad, that's criminal. I don't know. Little white pills? I stopped taking them yesterday. I need your help, sweetheart. I'm coming right now. I'll confront them. No, I said sharply. Don't come here, they'll know. We have to be smart. I need a lawyer, and I need proof. We arranged a plan. Sarah would contact Mr. Harris, our old family lawyer. She would also schedule a blood test. Discreetly, I hung up just as Mark walked back in. Who were you talking to, Dad? His eyes narrowed. Just checking the inventory, I mumbled, pointing at the invoices. Confused about the spark plug order. He seemed satisfied. The act was working. But the danger was real. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. The next few days were a tightrope walk, a grueling performance. I flushed the pills. Every day my mind grew sharper. My act grew more convincing. I repeated stories. I got lost on the way to the bathroom. I stared blankly at the television. Mark and Jessica watched me with smug satisfaction. Their plan was working perfectly. They were already spending the money they hadn't yet stolen. But the need for proof was urgent. Sarah scheduled the blood test. A private lab across town. Getting there was the challenge. I had to leave the house, alone. I waited until they were busy. A conference call with their lawyer. I heard them laughing in the study. I found the keys to my old pickup truck. In the garage, under a dusty tarp. They assumed I couldn't drive anymore. Another mistake on their part. I drove slowly, carefully, my hands steady on the wheel. The freedom felt intoxicating. At the lab, Sarah met me. She hugged me tight. I was so worried. I'm okay, sweetheart. I'm back. Let's get this done. The technician drew my blood. Sarah paid in cash. Results in 48 hours. The clock was ticking. When I got back home, Jessica was waiting at the door, arms crossed, fury in her eyes. Where were you, David? She demanded. This was dangerous. If I couldn't explain my absence, the plan would fall apart. They might lock me in my room. I had to make her believe I was confused, not defiant. I blinked. Ed looked around as if I didn't recognize the house. I wanted to see Emma, I whispered. I thought she was at the cemetery. I wanted to bring her flowers. Her expression softened, the anger replaced by pitying condescension. Oh, David, she sighed. Emma's gone. And you shouldn't be driving. You could have gotten hurt. She guided me inside, took the keys from my hand. "This just proves we are doing the right thing," she said firmly. "No more driving for you." The setback. I lost my freedom of movement, but it was worth it. We had the blood test. Now I needed the financial records, the proof of their motives. Mark had moved everything into the study, locked the door. He held the only key. I remembered something Emma used to say. "There's always a backup plan, David." The study used to be her sewing room, an old skeleton key lock. I wondered if the mechanism was still inside the modern handle. I had to find out. Late that night, while they slept, I crept downstairs to the garage. My toolbox, an old Allen wrench, a thin screwdriver. I worked carefully, probing the lock mechanism, my fingers aching, my ears straining for any sound from upstairs. The fear of getting caught was paralyzing, but the need for justice was stronger. Click. The door opened. The study was organized, terrifyingly efficient. I went straight to the main desk drawer. There it was. The conservatorship application. I read it. My blood boiled. A picture of a man completely incapable of caring for himself. My assets listed. The house, the shop, my savings, Emma's small life insurance policy, everything I had worked for. And then I found something else. A folder labeled investments. It wasn't my investments. It was their debts. Credit card statements, maxed out, loan agreements, exorbitant interest rates, a notice of foreclosure on their previous apartment. They weren't just greedy. They were desperate, drowning, and they were using me as a life raft. I took pictures, a disposable camera Sarah had bought for me. As I was closing the drawer, I saw the name on one of the loan agreements. Kevin. He wasn't just a lender. He was a partner. I kept digging. Emails between Mark and Kevin. Emails that revealed the truth. It wasn't just a failed venture. It was fraud. They had embezzled money from their clients. They were facing criminal charges if they didn't pay it back. This was the twist. The revelation that changed everything. They weren't just trying to steal my money for luxury. They were trying to steal my life to save their own skins. If they succeeded, everything Emma and I built would be used to finance a criminal enterprise. That there was more, something much worse. An old photo album tucked away in the back of the cabinet. Emma's. I opened it, my heart aching, and then I saw it. A bank statement, tucked inside the album. Years ago, Emma's small inheritance from her aunt. $10,000. She wanted Sarah to have it, for nursing school. The money was gone, transferred to Mark's account, the authorization form. The signature was Emma's, but it looked wrong. Emma had beautiful handwriting, flowing, elegant. The signature was shaky, hesitant, forged. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Jessica hadn't just started manipulating us now. She had been doing it for years. She had forged Emma's signature. She had stolen from Sarah the date. Emma was recovering from surgery, on painkillers, foggy, confused, much like I had been. Jessica hadn't just drugged me. She had taken advantage of my wife when she was vulnerable. The rage I felt now was different. It wasn't about the money. It was about Emma. It was about the systematic violation of my family's trust. This wasn't just greed. This was evil. 2 days later, another supervised visit to the shop. Sarah called the landline. She had the blood test results. "Dad, you were right," she said, her voice tight with anger. High levels of benzodiazepines, sedatives, strong ones. The doctor said the dosage was enough to cause significant cognitive impairment. "Good," I said. "That's the proof we needed." We were ready, the day before the hearing, a confrontation I didn't expect. I was on the porch, pretending to doze off. A car pulled up, fast, tires crunching on the gravel. It was Kevin. He looked angry. Mark rushed out of the house. "Kevin, what are you doing here? I told you I'd have the money on Monday." "You said that last week, Mark," Kevin shouted, ignoring me completely. "I'm done waiting. If I don't get my money by Monday, I'm going to the police." He jabbed a finger in Mark's chest. "I'll tell them everything about the embezzlement." "Keep your voice down," Mark hissed, pulling Kevin aside. Glancing nervously at me, I watched them argue, confirming everything. Their desperation was palpable. They were cornered animals. That evening, the weight of what I was about to do settled on my shoulders. I was about to destroy my son, expose him, send him to jail. He was my boy, the little boy I taught how to ride a bike. How could I do this to him? I looked at a picture of Emma. What would she want? Justice. She would want justice. I had to protect our legacy, even if it meant letting Mark face the consequences. I had to choose justice over blind love. The night before the hearing, I didn't sleep. I sat in my chair, looking at Emma's picture. I won't let them take everything we built. Emma, I whispered. I promise. They thought they were about to fly. To Aruba, to a life of luxury built on the ruins of my life. They were about to land in nowhere. The day of the hearing, bright, sunny, a beautiful day for justice. Mark and Jessica were giddy, excited. They dressed me in an old, ill-fitting suit, hoping I would look pathetic. Don't worry, David, Jessica said, straightening my tie, a condescending smile. This will all be over soon, and then we can take care of you properly at Whispering Pines. I just nodded, staring blankly ahead, playing my part until the very end. The courthouse. Sarah was there, sitting with Mr. Harris. He looked calm, ready. Mark's lawyer, slick, expensive suit, oozing false sympathy. The courtroom felt cold. Sterile, a judge, an older woman, sharp eyes, looked bored, expecting a routine hearing. She was in for a surprise. Mark's lawyer started smooth confidence. He painted a picture of a loving son and daughter-in-law, sacrificing their lives to care for their ailing father. He described my confusion, my forgetfulness, the incident where I drove to the cemetery, lost, confused. It was a convincing performance, a masterpiece of deception. He called Jessica to the stand. She wept crocodile tears, describing how painful it was to watch my decline. He's just not the man he used to be. Your Honor, she sobbed, dabbing her eyes, we just want to protect him. We love him so much. Lies. Every word a lie. Then they called the doctor Jessica had hired. Polished, arrogant. He testified that he had examined me, found significant cognitive impairment, consistent with early-onset dementia. He sealed my fate, or so they thought. The judge looked at me with pity. To Mr. Miller, do you understand what is happening here? Do you understand that your son is asking for the authority to manage your affairs? I nodded slowly, keeping my eyes down. It was our turn. Mr. Harris stood up, quiet, unassuming, but his presence filled the room. Your Honor, he began, his voice calm, steady. We do not contest that Mr. Miller has been struggling. Grief is a heavy burden, but we believe there is a more sinister explanation for his recent decline. He called me to the stand. I walked slowly to the witness box, leaning heavily on the cane Jessica forced me to use. I sat down, looked at Mark and Jessica. They were smiling faintly, confident in their victory. Mr. Miller, Mr. Harris said gently, can you tell us about the last few months? I took a deep breath, and then I dropped the act. I straightened my back. I tossed the cane aside. It clattered on the floor. I looked the judge straight in the eye, my voice clear, strong. Your Honor, I began. My son and daughter-in-law moved into my house 6 months ago, claiming they wanted to help me, but they had a different agenda. They saw my grief not as a burden to share, but as an opportunity to exploit. Mark and Jessica's smiles vanished. Stunned, their faces paling, they systematically isolated me. I continued. They took over my business, my finances, and they began a campaign to make me appear incompetent so they could seize control of my assets. Mark's lawyer jumped to his feet. Objection, Your Honor. This is slanderous. A desperate attempt to derail the proceedings. Overruled, the judge said, her boredom replaced by sudden, intense interest. Let him speak, counselor. I laid it all out, the overheard conversation, the plan to liquidate my assets. Put me in a home, the massive debts. They weren't trying to protect me, Your Honor. They were trying to save themselves. They are facing foreclosure and criminal charges for embezzlement. Mr. Harris presented the evidence, the pictures. The financial records, the foreclosure notice, the loan agreements with Kevin, the emails detailing the embezzlement. Mark and Jessica whispered furiously to their lawyer, panic in their eyes. This proves nothing, Your Honor, the lawyer argued, desperate. It just shows financial distress. It doesn't change the fact that Miss Miller is incompetent. The doctor's testimony confirms it. About that, Mr. Harris said, let's talk about Mr. Miller's cognitive impairment. He turned to me. Mr. Miller, have you been taking any medication lately? Yes, I said. My daughter-in-law, Jessica, gave me supplements. Every day, morning and night. 2 white pills. I reached into my pocket, pulled out the pills I had saved, handed them to Mr. Harris. We had these pills analyzed, Your Honor, Mr. Harris said, presenting the lab report. They are benzodiazepines. Strong sedatives, not supplements. The judge looked at the report, her expression hardening. And we have more, Mr. Harris continued. He called Sarah to the stand. Sarah testified. My sudden decline, her concerns, the discreet blood test. The blood test confirmed high levels of benzodiazepines in my father's system. Your Honor, she said, her voice shaking with emotion. The dosage was dangerously high. They were drugging him, intentionally making him appear confused and impaired. The courtroom was silent, all eyes on Mark and Jessica. Jessica was crying again, real tears this time. Tears of rage, panic. He's lying, she shrieked. He set us up. He's a manipulative old man. Mrs. Miller, sit down, the judge ordered, banging her gavel. But I wasn't finished. I had one more piece of evidence, the most painful one. Your Honor, I said, my voice softening, this isn't the first time they have deceived my family. Miss Harris presented the forged bank transfer authorization. Emma's shaky signature. This document authorized the transfer of $10,000 from my wife's account to my son's account, I explained. Money needed for my daughter's education. The signature is a forgery. My wife was recovering from surgery, I continued, my voice cracking. Vulnerable, medicated. Jessica took advantage of her, just like she took advantage of me. I looked at Mark. He looked away, unable to meet my eyes. He knew. He had known all along. That was the ultimate betrayal. It wasn't just about me. It was about Emma. The judge looked at Mark and Jessica with utter contempt. Mr. Miller, she said to me, her voice gentle, I am so sorry for what you have endured. She turned to Mark and Jessica. As for you two, the conservatorship petition is denied, effective immediately. She paused, letting the words hang in the air. Furthermore, she continued, I am referring this case to the district attorney's office. There is sufficient evidence for criminal charges. Elder abuse, fraud, forgery, and intentional poisoning. She looked at them, disgust on her face. And given the evidence of embezzlement, I suspect the DA will be very interested in your financial affairs. She banged her gavel. Bailiff, please escort Mr. and Mrs. Miller from the courtroom. They are to be detained pending investigation. The bailiff moved quickly. Handcuffs. Mark and Jessica. Shock. Disbelief. Their world. Their future. Cancelled in an instant. As they were led past me, Jessica glared at me. Pure hatred. Mark just looked broken, tears streaming down his face. How could you do this, Dad? He whispered. I looked at my son, the boy I had raised, the boy I had loved. You did it to yourself, Mark, I said quietly. You took everything from me. I just took it back. I watched them walk away, out of the courtroom, out of my life. The silence that followed was the sweetest sound I'd ever heard. The aftermath was a blur. Mark and Jessica were formally charged. The news spread quickly through our small town. Their reputations ruined. Kevin, facing his own legal troubles, cooperated fully, confirmed everything. The embezzlement, the plan to use my assets to cover up their crimes, the betrayal was complete. The truth was out. They both pleaded guilty, to avoid a lengthy trial. Jessica, the mastermind, received a longer sentence, 10 years. Mark, broken and remorseful, received a shorter one, 5 years. But the stain of his betrayal would follow him forever. I never visited them in prison. I couldn't bear to see them like that, but I also couldn't forgive them. Not yet, maybe not ever. I sold the auto shop. Mike and Tom took it over. Promised to keep the name Miller's Auto Repair. It was time for me to rest. I stayed in the house. The big, quiet house. But the silence felt different now. It wasn't the heavy silence of grief. It was the peaceful silence of resolution. Sarah moved in with me for a while. We cleaned out the study, removed every trace of Mark and Jessica. We brought Emma's quilts down from the attic. Spread them out in the living room, the blue one with the star pattern draped over the sofa. We replanted the garden, our hands digging into the soil, bringing life back to the house. The house felt like home again. One evening, a year later, I was sitting on the porch, watching the sunset, Sarah beside me, holding a cup of tea. I looked at the empty chair beside me, the chair where Emma used to sit. I missed her. I would always miss her, but I felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. I had protected her legacy. I had protected everything we built together. But I had lost my son. The victory was real. I had won. I had dismantled their plan, canceled their future, left them stranded in the consequences of their own greed. But the cost was high. The price of justice was my own flesh and blood. I looked up at the evening sky, the colors fading from orange to purple. A single tear rolled down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness or a tear of triumph. It was a tear for the family I had lost, and the painful realization that sometimes the hardest thing to fix isn't a broken engine. It's a broken trust. The silence was heavy, but I was no longer afraid of it. I was finally home. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.